Hello my fellow gamers and City Skylines mirrors. Today I have a real treat for you as I'm going to be showcasing this beautiful and fully functioning city of over 600,000 population made by one of my subscribers who goes by Resbin on Steam. He has used my advice, which I shared with you a few months back in my video about how a good RCI design can solve traffic in City Skylines, and has created this massive, sprawling and highly organized city which doesn't require any fancy traffic management to work and uses but a handful of mods which do no more than to keep the game balanced and working rather than to do the work for the player. Mod list is in the description. If you're new to my channel, my name is Peter and I welcome you to San Rico, a perfectly zoned city with no traffic, no public transportation and no pedestrian walkways. Now let's zoom in and see how Resbin pulled this off. Everything we can see in this city is highly organized, from the traffic flow through these highways to the RCI zoning in these areas, and each one of these separate areas has its own type of zoning, which makes sure that you're going to have residential, industry, commercial and offices at the same place. So for example, over here we have two rows of industry in the middle, we have the commercial areas right next to them, and then we have the offices, and only then do we have the residential areas. While these designs are a bit different because there is no industry, commercial or offices in the middle. And you can see this organization take place inside of the entire city with different structures in different areas. For example, these are different to these and are different to these. Now this all combines to create a highly structured and organized city where you will not have any problem with traffic. And if we take a look, you can see that the average traffic flow is currently 86%. This does vary from something like 84, 83 to 87, but you can see here that only a few streets have any traffic on them, that's red, and those streets are usually streets where you can find a lot of trucks. Another interesting feature of this city and its highway connection is that this player has followed one of my rules, saying that if you want to get rid of regional traffic which just wants to go through your city, you need to have these off-ramps of the highways, which are entrances to your city, and then take that traffic directly all the way to the other highway and its exit, because these vehicles don't need to be traveling through your city, they just want to go to another highway. Now another very important design decision here, as I said, was the RCI design, because this way you have Sims who live here, for example in this household, and they have everything they need down the block. And whichever way they go, they have everything they need. For example, over here they have offices if they are highly skilled laborers and want to work there. If we take a look over here, we have the industry on both sides, and they even have commercial shops if they want to work or shop there. That means that every person living in this neighborhood here has everything they need just down the block and have no need to take their cars and go around the city looking for something, work, shopping or otherwise. It's same with the utilities and services, being that the services, the schools for example, are everywhere inside of each of these residential districts. You have the high schools, the universities, you have the healthcare, death care, and of course you have the police and the fire safety everywhere here in these sections, and it's all covered. It's covered just right, it doesn't have too many services, just the right amount. Another thing that you might be worried about is pollution and sound pollution in the city. But if we take a look at these overlays, you can see just how well designed this is, that it keeps the sound pollution on the edges, on the highways, and not inside here where the residents live. You can see that where there is residential, there is no sound pollution. This is a light sound pollution from these roads here, which have more traffic in them, and there is also some light pollution over here to the edges because of the commercial buildings which do produce some sound pollution, as we can see if you zoom in here. But the offices here are the dampening zones before this next residential building gets a little bit of sound pollution and then the next gets nothing. As to the ground pollution, you can see that it exactly stops right here at the end of these offices, and there is no ground pollution hitting these residential zones. This is why this zoning idea is so fantastic, because as I explained in my previous videos, that industry creates pollution, but commercial buildings don't care about pollution and the offices don't care about pollution. Now the industry does produce sound pollution as well, but the commercial buildings don't care and produce some of it themselves, and the offices don't care at all. That means that as your sound pollution stops here, no amount of residents will be influenced by it. And if you take a look at the happiness, you can see that the residents are at 83% happiness, commercial 76, offices 93 and industrial 92, which is all really high. And if we go over here and take a look at the parks and plaza, you can see just how many parks and plazas there are this isn't perfect coverage, but it is quite satisfactory coverage, and these folks do not have any problems with finding a park, a shop, and having leisure time there. I want to show you something else. For example, when people need to enter into the city and want to go somewhere, they use just the highways. They will not go through sections of the city because the highways are a much faster way of getting through the city. For example, if a person here in this car, if they want to go here, all they have to do is get over here, go to this exit, turn over here, go underneath here, and here they are. But if they want to go somewhere much farther away, for example, if they wish to go over here and live in this household, all they have to do is follow this highway, go all the way to this interchange, continue forward, get to this interchange, get off using this ramp, go onto this highway, go over here, and here they are in this residence neighborhood. So they do not need to go into these residential areas, nor do they have to enter each one of these sections to go anywhere else, because they just use the highways and do not create extra traffic inside of these sections. Now, there are two residential only sections, one here and one here, which I'm guessing because the player has used only 9 areas. He hasn't bought any more than 9, hasn't used the mod to unlock 25 spaces, so he needed just a few more areas of residential to get to his target of 600,000 population. Now, this population might look too much, especially when you take a look that this map is actually the same map where I built my city of Bedrock in my road to 1 million population on the hard mode, and I had changed that map quite considerably. This player has done so as well. He has leveled this lake, which used to be here, but my point is that he has gotten 600,000 population in only 9 squares. This is kinda due to the fact that he uses one of the mods which remodels how many families can live in a single building. So if we take a look at a 4x4 building, this building holds 36 households. This is a bit higher than normal, and that is why you might think that no way this could hold 600,000 population, but actually it does because of that mod. Now, that is a little bit of a cheat, but it's not that big of a deal, especially when you consider that you have to actually supply all those extra folks with all of those additional jobs. Now, that mod does also change the amount of workplaces inside of these factories, and inside of these commercial zones you can see that 69 workers can fit in a single 4x4 commercial building. Now, that is the good side of that mod, because not only does it provide you with higher population in the households, it also provides you with more jobs inside of these buildings. Now, you can see here that not all of these buildings have been raised to their maximum level. Why is this so? Because there is no public transportation. It is a civil service that these buildings love to get in order to level up even higher. But in the city you can see that there are no buses, no trolleys, no metro, no trains, and no boats. This is because there is no need. You can see that the traffic flow is now at 84%, but you can see just how light the traffic is inside of these sections and inside of these streets, and even where we can find a red street, this flows quite well and quite naturally. There are no problems here. As I was explaining before, this is due to the good RCI design, which prevents people from taking unnecessary rides across the city, and they have everything they want perfectly settled in here. You can see how these 4 sections of RCI are surrounded by offices, commercial and industry, and they have no problem finding work and shopping inside of these areas. Now, additionally, what prevents a lot of the traffic being created is the fact that the industry is so well balanced. You can see that we have an import up to 12,000 of oil products, forestry or goods agriculture, and that we also have an export of forestry products, ore products, a little bit of oil, and mostly goods. But this is just 13 and something change of import and export for a city of 600,000 population. And we can take a look at the statistics and see just how many zones there are. So industry is almost at 50,000, commercial is down at 33, offices are even lower at 30, and the residents are at 130,000 zones. This shows you that even at the industry at 50,000 zones, there is only 12,000 import and export. And this is brilliant due to the fact that there is industry which is of different sorts. For example, if we take a look here, we can see that we have agriculture, forestry, agriculture, forestry, some oil industry over here, some ore industry over here. So this city has all of the specialized industries, and on top of that it has the generic industries as well. So if we take a look at these buildings, these are generic industry and they are producing the goods. So the only imports are stuff that cannot be produced locally, but due to the fact that there is so much different industries here, they all complement each other and create everything necessary for goods, and then those goods are spent in these shops which are everywhere, and the shops do not lack buyers for the fact that they have buyers right next to them. Two additional points for this city are its power production, which is done by these 4 nuclear power plants which spend a lot of water. And the fact is that this city did not have water storage production when I loaded the city up. You can do the same, as this city is on the workshop. You can find this save. I will link it in the description below. But here I had to add the water pumping stations over here and more water pumping stations over here. And I had to add the sewage treatment plants because the player had used some assets that were not available to me and might not be available to you. So when you load up the city, keep it on pause and place the water and sewage first for it to be operational, because without water these nuclear power plants would not have the ability to produce power. This power is quite cheap actually, and if we go to the budget we can see that the power budget is at 75%, so there is lots of headroom. Water I could have reduced a little bit more. I increased the health, fire, police and school services a bit more because I wanted to help level up these buildings a bit higher, and they have been leveling up steadily as we have been doing this showcase. Now another thing that I wanted to show you was the fact that if we go and take a look at the counter and object data limit, the city uses 20,000 buildings out of the possible 48,000, and this is with 600,000 population, but like I said, this is due to the mod allowing more sims to live in buildings and more sims to work in buildings. Now as for the vehicles, there are 10,000 vehicles. Now this is quite high even for just 9 squares, but as you saw, the traffic is so light because of the fact that the industry is really well balanced, that everybody has everything they need very close to where they live, and that prevents most of the traffic. Now of course I do want to mention these cool looking interchanges. Now I love this design. I'm really psyched about being able to show you this. You might have seen this before. I'm not sure if this player uses somebody else's design or is this his personal design, but it's really cool design. It does take a lot of space, but it's excellent. You can see here how these vehicles go here, and I'm just going to pause for a moment here. They get into this ramp, which then separates into 2 branches. One branch goes over here and connects to this ramp, which I will talk about a bit later, and then gets onto this highway. While this ramp over here takes the traffic over here across and then onto this highway. If you take a look at this highway, you can see that the ramp separates and then takes the traffic all the way here. And this is where 2 ramps come together to bring the traffic into this one. This way, this player forces the traffic to always get into the 3rd lane, while most of the traffic uses the 1st and 2nd lane. And this prevents pileups. But with traffic this light, there really isn't a chance for pileup. Where there is where we have these off-ramps into the city. Now here he's using some custom roads which are part of the network extension mod, and as you can see here, I wouldn't actually connect these two. This would be how I would do it, but it's a quite interesting design because we have an off-ramp which is then followed by a ramp which takes the traffic into this part of the city, while this ramp also services as an exit and then connects to this ramp which takes them out. So this is why it is important to have an on-ramp and then only after that the off-ramp, so that the traffic doesn't intertwine with each other. As for the connections between these areas themselves, you can see this in this overlay, that there are underground roads connecting each one of these sections to each other. So if the traffic wants to go from this area to this area, it doesn't have to go onto a highway, it just uses these tunnels, and you can see a lot of people using these tunnels to actually walk between these sections and probably going to shops or industry on the other side of the section. Now you cannot really prevent sims in City Skylines from taking, for example, a place of living here and then place of work here, but by giving them lots of opportunities to take up jobs in this area, you will reduce the chance that they will go into this area. And that is exactly what happens with this RCI design. Another thing that I wanted to mention about the city is the brilliant balancing of workplaces and jobs in the city. You can see that there are 282,000 jobs available, there are people employed 255,000 and only 1 unemployment percent, meaning that everybody is going to be happy with their jobs. Now this is of course due to one of the mods allowing overeducated workers to work in workplaces which require lower educated personnel. You can see that at this factory there are 6 overeducated workers working here, but that is okay, the mod allows for that, and that makes it much easier to balance out your industry with the education, because that would be kind of problematic because you can't really control how many people will be educated. You can control it by capacity, but you can't really control which section would they be educated at, would they go to the university or not if you had it available. And you can see here that there are far more eligible for university than there are actual university places. But this is actually good because this player had decided to use a lot of specialized industry, and that industry usually requires uneducated and educated. And if he had allowed Sims to be fully educated by the universities, he would then have a problem of too many highly educated and not enough uneducated or educated Sims. So that is another example of how you have to follow a lot of steps and make sure that a lot of things are balanced in order to get a fully working city. Now, those elements all come together and at the end create such a good traffic flow and such a good city. Now, as you might have noticed, the city is highly organized. It's kind of using the grid system, and for me, that's excellent. I like cities like that, and I like very well designed and worky cities. Now for you, it might look that the city is actually ugly because there are so many straight lines, everything is blocked and separated, but that is how you achieve a very good working city. Now you could try and beautify this, and I want you to try using your own ideas how to make a beautiful city, but just remember all of these rules which I have shown you implemented in the city, which make a great and operational city. Now that is everything I wanted to show you about this city. If you have any questions, you can tell me in the comments below, and I would like to thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for much more.